All right, thanks for joining us. My name is UltraDavid. With me is James Chen.
How's everybody going?
We are here to talk about the Masters Series from Canada Cup Gaming. It's this coming weekend in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Mm-hmm. And this is an event. This is going to be a really cool event because it's 8 players. They're going to be going round robin, first to 7.
Yeah.
So this is going to be 2 days of just constant highest level Ultra Street Fighter 4. And, this has been years in the making, essentially, because it's all the winners of the previous Canada Cup tournaments since 2010. So they're all coming to this event here. And then there was an also qualifier at the Wednesday Night Fights that Level Up was putting up. And then also the Evolution 2014 champ is, kind of got a well-deserved spot there. So the last player is going to be determined at that weekend in an open tournament beforehand. A lot of really potentially strong players there as well. But we do know 7 of the players that are there.
That's right. So the 7 will include Pepeday, Daigo, Kazunoko, Luffy, Snake Eyes, Shen, and Xiaohai.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're going to talk about Pepeday.
Yep. This guy, he's been playing for a while, but really, honestly, he burst into the scene in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
He won a Tokyo Game Show tournament. He came out of nowhere.
Right, yeah, I mean, he was top 25 on the Japanese arcade board ranking. It's not like he was actually from nowhere.
Right.
But his friends convinced him to try it out at the tournament.
Drive a good distance, too, yeah.
They did. And he won, at his first big major like that. So
and beating Bonchan in grand finals as
some
well.
big names. Yeah. He really burst onto the scene, and people liked him so much, not just in Japan but in the rest of the world.
Oh yeah.
That he has been sort of crowdsourced as a sponsor. By our kappa and by people in Japan and Korea. And he's been able, as a result, to fly around to multiple tournaments in North America and in Europe.
And in Canada.
And now in Canada.
Because he won Canada Cup 2014 because I don't remember if he was crowdsourced to that event or if Alachi
good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But in any case, he won that tournament, and man, this guy must be having the time of his life.
Right.
Like, his friends convinced him, let's go to this Tokyo Game Show, and now he's been everywhere. He's been to 3 continents now, right? So I mean, that's pretty crazy. So I can't imagine this guy's he must be just enjoying life so much.
I'm
right
sure
now.
he is. I hope he is. Yeah. So his character Fuerte got slept on a lot. Wasn't very good, I should say, in previous versions of the game.
Yeah.
Some people thought he was mid tier, but I think most people thought he was low, and nobody thought he was high.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Sure.
He got some significant buffs
in Ultra.
Yeah. So he's quite a good character. And Pepeday, like we said, has been doing well with him the whole time. But now that the character has more mid-range control than he did before, better pressure than he did before, better mix-ups, more consistently damaging combos rather than just getting individual hits, Pepeday has had more success.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too because I talked to people who've played against him. They say that Pepeday is super smart, one of the smartest players. And so even though, Fuerte kind of has this reputation for being this crazy go-nuts shenanigansy character, he's doing a lot of really smart things.
Oh, yeah.
The interesting thing to me is I feel like he's still growing.
Okay.
I feel like Pepeday can take Fuerte to, the ridiculous heights because he still has a lot of vanilla to AE 2012 kind of habits with Fuerte, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about this against Snake Eyes in a little bit, but there was a match where Snake Eyes got a big lead on him, and then he kind of calmed down and then played a lot more careful, and then he was able to come back against Snake Eyes, you know, and I feel like the sky's the limit for this guy, especially in this kind of environment, and he's getting all this publicity now, so I just feel like his drive to practice more and to do all these things, I'm looking forward to a lot of Pepeday in 2015.
Me too. Yeah. The character I think is very interesting. You're right that it gets called very shenanigansy and stupid a lot of the time, but that I think is by people who haven't tried him and who haven't really thought well about him. His run is his spacing game.
Yeah.
Okay, and he has the ability to control a lot of tempo from far away, and he has the ability to sort of control when he comes in. That used to be that's great, but he has some problems. I mean, look, when he enters, it's never with big damage.
Right.
He doesn't have that capability. So even though he has a lot of control, unless he's up close, unless there are some particular situations, he's not damaging a lot. So as a result, you sort of have to be very intelligent about where you space your run and when you go in and when you control and how you control pace.
Right.
There's a lot of very interesting things go into his play that sort of don't go into a lot of other characters in Street Fighter 4.
Yeah, and again, Fuerte had to rely on kind of that little built-in vortex, of splash what side and propeller tortillas and all this stuff like that. And now he doesn't need to do any of that, like not necessarily.
Not as much.
It's still a weapon,
yeah.
which is great. But now the big giant, fundamentals portion of the gameplay, which he didn't have before, he has now, right? And like I said, the only critique I can give Pepeday is he still kind of has that little more mix-up heavy kind of play, and I feel like if he calms down a little bit more, it'll be really scary. It'll be really scary to fight against him. Yeah. So I'm not saying he's doing bad or anything. Don't get me wrong. Again, like I said, only critique I can say about it. So, and by saying that, I just mean I feel like I said, he has just so much potential to be one of the most dominating players this whole year.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree with that, for sure.
But he's going up against 6 known players again that we already know, and so we can just go through all those matches.
Let's start it off with Daigo. Pepeday beat Daigo at Tokyo Game Show. We're talking about 2-0. That's sort of the case with a lot of these that we're going to talk about, where people sort of weren't thinking about El Fuerte.
Yes,
everybody knew he got better, certainly, but you just didn't really see a Fuerte dominate. You hadn't seen it ever, really, and so a lot of people hadn't put in the time to figure out how the character worked playing against him at a high level. So I do feel like he caught some people off guard. I'm not sure that Daigo was one of them, because he tends to do homework pretty well, I think that's going to be even less the case in this one now. I really think that Daigo's going to have everything figured out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, no one ever used Quesadilla Bomb previous to Ultra. Not a lot, right?
Yeah.
So nobody thought about how to punish it.
Right.
So I think every character can punish it on block, right? And so that's not going to happen anymore. You're not going to get Quesadilla Bombs on people and not have them punish you properly, right? So Daigo, we're always going to say that long sets favor Daigo because he adapts really well. And so even though he lost 0-2 to Pepeday at Tokyo Game Show, I still will give the advantage to Daigo in this one, mostly because, again, he probably didn't know everything about Fuerte, but I can't imagine that he's not going to now, knowing that Pepeday is at this event. Yeah. And again, long sets, I just feel like are just so good for Daigo.
Well, Pepeday thinks that Fuerte has an even matchup against Evil Ryu, slight advantage against Ryu if that's who Daigo goes with, but we'll see. Probably Evil. But we'll talk about what Pepeday thinks about each of these matchups. But in general, I think a lot of people think that he sort of downplays his character.
As what people tend to do.
A lot of people, it's very common, for sure. So I don't know. I sort of think that Fuerte does better than that, but not by much. Maybe a slight advantage. But Pepeday himself has the ability to perform in long sets. He's beaten top level players, as we'll talk about in a bit, in long sets too.
That's right.
So, so Pepeday also playing against Kazunoko. I don't think they've played, as far as I could tell. Pepeday thinks that Fuerte loses to Yan.
Right. But this is going to be a crazy match.
Yeah.
I mean, Kazunoko, even in interviews with other Japanese players, he has this reputation for being crazy, kind of wild guy, right? And now Pepeday. I mean, we saw the match. It was at Canada Cup where Pepeday played against Punko.
Yes.
And that was just the most crazy, what is going on match, in recent memory.
Yeah.
And I have a funny feeling this one's going to be kind of similar to that.
I could totally see that.
And I'm looking forward to this match. I don't know who's going to... I can't call it because I just feel like it's going to be crazy. But, maybe Kazunoko might have a slight advantage because Yan just does well against Fuerte.
Yeah.
Punishes Quesadilla Bomb well, punishes Splash well, and stuff like that.
A lot of good stuff.
So I would have to give a slight edge to Kazunoko in this, but this match is just going to be craziness.
This will be one of the most fun to watch.
Yeah. I can't wait. 7.
That's my only confident thing about this.
First to 7, potentially 13 matches of this craziness.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Pepeday versus Luffy. They did play.
Yes.
Not that long ago. Luffy eliminated Pepeday at DreamHack Winter 3-1. In Pepeday's view, his character loses to Rose.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the result, to be honest with you. Especially, not necessarily even because it's Rose.
Okay.
Yeah, Kazunoko says that he thinks Rose wins, but I think it's more just because it's Luffy. And Luffy, again, super calm player. Very hard to put him in situations where he doesn't know what's going on. So I just feel like that's going to counter Pepeday's Fuerte style pretty well. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if Pepeday surprised him and was able to take him out, and win in this first to 7, but I have to give the edge to Luffy.
Yeah, I guess I agree with that. I mean, I can definitely see Rose beating the character. The character match is playing well for Luffy. And then you're right, Luffy is not going to get caught off guard. He's not afraid to make reads.
Yes.
Okay, and the way that his character makes reads is to not really put herself in that much risk.
Yeah.
Okay, but nevertheless pays off. So I think that this is going to be
Ultra 2 momentum.
Pepeday.
Ultra 2 momentum killers for Rose. Like he knocks you down and then give her just one little tiny hole, and all of a sudden here comes the orbs, and now you have to respect that.
Ooh, I hope we get to see the sickest punish ever on Quesadilla Bomb.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Start Ultra 2 and then crouch immediate and then the
slide,
and then the orbs hit, and it's so sick. I don't know, we'll see. We'll see. Pepeday also versus Snake Eyes. These two also played each other, in fact, a couple of times. At NEC, Pepeday won 2-0 and then 3-2. He double Jeopardy'd Snake Eyes. And then at the Fall Classic, of course, they played that long set, first to 10, and Pepeday won 10-8.
Yes. And now, I know Pepeday thinks this is an even matchup.
That's what he says.
I
don't agree with that.
I don't agree with that. I think Fuerte
Snake Eyes
wins
doesn't either.
Yeah, I think Fuerte wins this match. And
Me too.
honestly, when you were watching the 10-8 that he won at the Fall Classic, I mean, seriously, I'm surprised Snake Eyes even got 8 games. I mean, that's how it looked. That's how it looked, because Fuerte, it's so hard for Zangief to stop even stuff like the propeller tortilla, because he has no throw invincible moves, right? So it's really tough for him. Now, interestingly enough, in the losers bracket of NEC, Snake Eyes, and this is what I was referring to earlier, he went up 2-0 against Pepeday after being knocked into losers by him.
Okay.
And he won those 2 games really convincingly.
Okay.
Really good. And it was just like, okay, Snake Eyes has got it figured out now.
Okay.
But then Pepeday took it 3 games in a row to win 3-2. And what impressed me the most, and this is kind of what I'm hinting at, is that he stopped going crazy with Fuerte and started calming down a little bit and playing a little bit more patient and a little more intelligently, I felt like. And that's how I feel like he won those 3 games. And this is why I feel like Pepeday has so much potential, because I feel like he can take this character to even another level, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he's probably the best Fuerte in the world,
Oh, sure.
I feel like he can still get better with the character, and that's a scary thought. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the matchup got a little bit harder for Snake Eyes in that Jab Green Hand doesn't really punish as well as it did before. It doesn't punish Quesadilla Bomb, and it doesn't punish a well-placed back run splash. The back run into splash is a little bit safer than forward run into splash. So back run splash, even, it can't really be punished by that. So that's tougher for Snake.
Yeah.
Now Snake Eyes, Zangief is still has punishes on both of those things, but they're not as good. So that's going to be a little bit tougher. The character Fuerte just really controls the pace. Yeah. And it's like it's up to Geef to sort of react well enough to the situation that Fuerte gets to sort of choose.
So. And so I mean, in this matchup, I would give the edge to Pepeday. I mean, the history also, says that as well. So
yeah, I think so too. Man, I thought Geef has lost in every version to Fuerte.
Well, especially in Vanilla. In Vanilla, it was really bad, right? Because there was like nothing he could do to propel it.
Yeah, there was some killer setups,
selects and stuff.
Okay, so Pepeday versus Shen. I don't think they've played either.
Okay.
As far as I know.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Pepeday hasn't played a lot of these guys.
Oh, absolutely.
He just, like we said, he just kind of showed up in 2014.
Got some proving to do. Yeah. So according to him, Fuerte goes even against Gen, loses to Poison, and beats Sim 6-4.
Okay. Nah, I mean, there's no way Shen is going to play Sim in this matchup. I really can't imagine he would do that.
That would be... I'm sorry, he goes even with Poison, not...
Okay.
But yeah, I think you're right. Probably not going to go Shen.
I would imagine he would go. I mean, the interesting thing, Poison might be a decent choice because that could control pace a little bit more. She can control the space, control the screen with fireballs a lot more, right? Gen, I don't know. I feel like Gen can get mixed up a little bit more because I mean, Poison's uppercut also kind of goes horizontal, which might work against Splash mix-up a little bit. But
I could see her having some good things. Backflip is probably useful to get out of situations. Well, maybe not so much, but certainly she can pressure him in such a way that's reasonably safe. She can set up Love Me Tenders, the flip kick that'll break armor, break EX run, that sort of stuff. So she probably does pretty well. That's if I had to pick a character that seems like does the best against Fuerte, I might go of his three. I might go with Poison. But,
yeah.
But we'll see. In fact, interesting to note on Twitter just a couple of days ago, saw a post from Shen where he asked, "Hey, anybody know which character beats Fuerte?"
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's doing his research.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was, interesting. Pepe Daily versus Xiaohai. Again, don't think they've played. But Pepe Daily says that Fuerte goes even against Evil Ryu. Like I said, he loses to Yun 4-6 and goes even with Cammy.
Yeah. Xiaohai, his biggest advantage coming into this event is that he's got a lot of characters to go with. And they're all really good.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, Cammy, Evil Ryu, Yun, all very strong characters. But Xiaohai is also kind of an aggressive player. And you kind of need to have a really solid defense, I feel like, to go up against Pepe Daily.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that will play out well for Xiaohai.
Yeah.
But again, Xiaohai has a lot of characters to go with. So he can definitely try a few of them and see how it goes. So he has a lot more room to experiment in the first to 7. But I honestly don't know which character would be the best one to go for.
Well, I don't know. Look, I've only seen him play a couple of times in the last few months, and it was just with Evil.
Right.
In September, I know he played Yun in a tournament, so I assume he still has that character. I feel like that's probably the best choice of those three, but we'll see. I think you're right to point out the sort of defensive issue.
Yeah.
And we probably should have brought that up maybe for Shen also. That could be an issue for Shen.
Right.
But yeah, he is largely untested. We said Pepe Daily just sort of came onto the international scene just a few months ago, and so he hasn't played against most of these players. Most people have not played a Fuerte of that level.
Yes.
It's very rare to have done so. So a lot of these players are not going to have that experience. Like I said, Shen was just asking people on Twitter, "Hey, anybody have any ideas?"
Right.
So I mean, I feel like that's sort of representative where a lot of people are in playing against Fuerte. Now, of course, they've put in work since Pepe Daily burst onto the scene.
Yeah. In fact, that almost might have been Pepe Daily's worst enemy, was himself showing everybody how good Fuerte could actually be.
It had to happen at some point.
Because I remember when he first started winning, Twitter exploded with how do you punish Fuerte, how do you beat Fuerte, here's this. And even just recently, I think it was Spab who put out a whole series, Spab Rog put out a whole series on how to beat Fuerte.
Yeah.
So about to imagine a lot of people are probably going to be watching that.
Well, I hope they are for their sakes. Yeah. But that said, look, you can learn how to do things against a character. You learn how to punish all those things and use them in match. But that's not the same thing as having practiced the neutral game and how to respond to the mix-ups and how to force your own mix-ups. You can have all the plans, but once things start, you can face new situations and things you haven't seen before. So.
And that is one of the strengths that Fuerte has, is that he will put you in situations that you're like, wait, what is going on? And if you can't recover quick enough, then it's going to be bad news. It's going to be really bad news. So
yeah, I think he's a wild card.
Yeah.
I don't think he's one of the favorites, but I think he's a big wild card.
Yeah, he's going to be interesting because a lot of the other people who could be considered favorites could easily lose to Pepe Daily. So he is definitely in a position to mess up a lot of scores. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it's going to be going out, and especially, in the situation in the long sets. as you mentioned, he's actually done really well in long sets. He's played a lot of exhibitions against people since traveling to all these events and stuff like that.
Money matches in some cases for quite a bit of money. And one of them was 10-8 over Snake Eyes, one of the most sort of fundamentals heavy players that are on this list.
Yeah, so it's going to be really exciting to see.
I'm glad he's there.
Yeah, and he's going to be playing against everybody, right? Again, this is a round robin, 1st to 7, so we're going to see every one of these matchups, and we're going to learn a lot about these players at this event. That's what's going to make this really super exciting. All the speculation and everything like that, but then, it's just going to be so cool to see how it actually plays out. So, So definitely tune in if you can. That's going to be twitch.tv/Canada Cup this weekend. For 2 days, pretty much, we're going to be watching lots of high-level Ultra action. So.
That's right. If you can make it out to Calgary, I highly recommend that you get there. The venue looks great. It'd be nice to meet and play with all these players. Like we said, there's an open spot also. You can enter for that to get into the 8th spot. But yeah, it'll be great. If you can't make it, check it out. Twitch.tv/Canada Cup.
And if you watch on stream, we'll see you there. So, all right.